What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso. Saturday, 12-pack, Jets Falcons. The 2-9 Jets return back to MetLife Stadium after two straight road losses. Going to go through about 12 minutes of my predictions for this one. A couple quick PSA reminders. BadlandsTOJ.com. Get that beanie. Get that Yeti. Both high-quality products. Check them out right now. BadlandsTOJ.com. Catch up on the feed. Loaded with content tomorrow. Jet Heads, 11 a.m. on our YouTube channel. Live, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Call in, get some chatter going with Meeks and Paul. And Connor and I will have our normal post-game reaction, therapy or party, probably around 8:30 or 9 o'clock tomorrow night. Look, I've been pretty direct in the pod on my feelings on this game. I actually think the Jets are going to win this game. I'm not saying they're great or they're always better than Atlanta. I just think home, November 30th, Kirk Cousins, no Drake London, very banged up Falcons team playing outside, a team that seems to be trending towards likely making a head coach change at the end of the year, a team that's been a major disappointment this season. This just feels like a game I could see the Jets taking. I don't think they're going to dominate or steamroll the Falcons. To me, this feels like a 20-13, 19-16, total points under 40 type game. I think both the Falcons and the Jets are going to get after the quarterback in this one. I expect each defense to have, 2, 3, 4 sacks. I expect each defense to force a turnover, at least one. Yes, that includes the Jets. I think if there's a game to get your first interception or at least force a fumble from the quarterback, this one lines up pretty well to it. I think Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson will be factors in this game and each get on the board with another sack, which will bring McDonald to 8 on the season and Jermaine to 4 on the season. Bijan's going to get yards, right? Bijan's a great player. I'm sure he's going to be all over the Falcons' game plan as a runner and a pass catcher. I think Atlanta will move the ball relatively well, but end up settling for a lot of field goals. I also think the Jets are going to win the special teams battle in this game decisively, and I think that's going to be a big part of why they have just enough to get a win in this one where, I think offensively maybe you get 2 touchdowns and then you get a couple field goals from Folk. That ends up being enough where you're regularly winning the field position battle. I can see Atlanta missing a kick in the conditions, and I think that will be a factor where the Jets basically play the turnover game to a draw. They win the special team battle, and they win a relatively low-scoring game that's dominated by the pass rush on each side, and Bijan and Breece Hall. I think this will be a big Breece Hall game. I think he will play well coming off the late-game mistake against the Ravens. I like Breece to have at least 3 catches. I think he'll get at least 15, 16 carries. I think he'll probably have a bit over 100 total yards and get back into the end zone in some capacity. I like the Mechie reception overs, as Connor said, upon really rewatching the game. The Jets are scheming for Mechie as he's their number one receiver, right? They're moving him around. They're setting picks for him. They're doing things to get him open. And I think he'll end up, and Tyrod clearly is comfortable with him, I think he'll get 8, 9 targets and probably log 5 or 6 catches. So you could get pretty good value with him at, over 3.5 catches, over 4.5 catches. I think Mitchell will be really involved as well. I think he'll get 6 or 7 targets. There's just more variance on his targets, especially with Tyrod's deep ball accuracy right now. So I'm a little more wary on Mitchell's overs because he could have like 3 catches for 90 yards, but, across 9 targets where that's kind of how it broke out against the Ravens. So I think a safer bet is your Mechie over on receptions or targets and your Breece on receptions over and targets. That's what I'm building my underdog pick around. Shout out promo code Badlands for a deposit match. I think Bijan will also be very involved in the passing game for the Falcons. I think he'll have, 3 or 4 catches as well. Mooney's kind of operating as the Falcons' lead receiver with Drake London out. You'd like to see Azareye'h Thomas and Brandon Stevens up to that challenge. 2-4. Brownlee was better last week. I'd like to see him continue to build after a couple tough games with penalties. The Jets have to clean up the penalties in the back end. I'm not expecting any real surprises from a lineup standpoint. I'd love if the Jets tried, a Dean Clark or something at safety, but I feel like we'll probably still have Adams at safety next to Malachi Moore. I don't think you'll see any surprises in the offensive rotation or who's inactive and who's not inactive overall. I mean, again, the targets are going to be funneled to Mechie and Mitchell. with Isaiah Williams probably functioning as the main number 3 receiver and a couple gadget plays here or there for Arian Smith, but I wouldn't touch anything from a prop standpoint. I think Jet fans are going to be angry because this is going to be a close game throughout and a game that they're going to have a good chance to win and may win. And I don't need to rehash the tank stuff again. It's the kind of game where if Aaron Glenn and the Jets don't show up at home and they lose to a pretty bad Atlanta team, they're going to get ripped. They go out and beat an Atlanta team. It's going to be like, well, they suck anyway, and they just screwed up their draft position, so they're idiots. So for them, they just have to go out and play football and see where the chips land. And again, would I be shocked if the Jets lost this game? Absolutely not. It just in my mind, this is like a 50-50 game, and I think the Jets being at home this time of the year against a dome team, to me, just feels right to steal one. And let's see if coming off that, they could finally beat Miami and finally beat Tua, who's been playing better lately. They're still technically on the fringes of the weak AFC playoff picture. I mean, man, coming off those games, it's funny. You watch Bengals Ravens and you're like, oh, well, maybe the Jets beating the Ravens hanging around with the Ravens for a bit wasn't that impressive. And they're like, well, they also beat the Bengals and almost scored 40 points on them. And the Ravens couldn't do anything on offense. So it's a weird league right now. And there's a couple bad teams, not bad, but very mediocre teams who are going to get into the playoffs overall. In terms of what you're watching from a tank perspective, right? It's the usual suspects. You want to see the Titans win. You want to see the Giants win. You want to see the Saints win. You want to see the Browns or the Raiders win. Those are the big 5 to watch. And, can those teams, stack up a couple? I think the Giants actually have a chance to be frisky against the Pats on Monday night. I wouldn't bet them or anything, but I could see them being a little frisky in that one. And, for the Jets, I wouldn't drive yourself crazy either way, right? You want to see the young players that we've discussed ad nauseum come out and play well. And this is a good game, good challenge for Armand Membu, Olu Fashanu, Joe Tippmann, and this Jets offensive line. Atlanta's got a talented collection of pass rushers. We know Jeff Ulbricht's going to be aggressive in coming after Tyrod Taylor in his homecoming. So if the Jets could hold up against that pass rush, I think Tyrod will have some opportunities down the field against that Falcons secondary. Again, I think this will be a big Brees game. And don't rip your hair out if the Jets find a way to win. And don't rip your hair out if the Jets find a way to lose. There's still 6 games left. Mentally, I see the Jets picking 4th, 5th, or 6th roughly this year. How that's going to play out at quarterback, I don't know. I'm curious to see Mendoza against an Ohio State type defense at some point and what he looks like then. Simpson, it's been a disappointment the last few weeks. Does that turn around before his season ends? Does he decide to go back to school? Still sounds like Moore is going back to school. So is there really just going to be one quarterback who goes in the top 5? And are the Jets going to pay the necessary ammo to move up? I don't know. I don't know if I'm sold on them doing that yet. Right now, I'm just focused on, what is it going to be? 12,000 people at MetLife on Sunday? Hopefully we get some nice weather and some people could get into the building with better tickets than they normally would because the prices are so low for this one. And get down to lower level. There shouldn't be a lot of Falcons there. I don't think Falcons fans are traveling for this one at MetLife with how down their season has been. But back-to-back home games here for the Jets against teams who are either dome or warm weather teams. So I am sure Aaron Glenn is preaching we're a Northeast physical football team. These are, soft dome and warm weather teams, and we're going to just try to beat the hell out of them in the trenches and run the football and play our brand of football. Yada, yada, what coaches say. So I think Glenn wants that. Remember that drive against the Browns in the second half where Brees had 9 straight touches and he was running out to the huddle to cheer on the offensive line. I think he wants that kind of game in the cold. So I'm leaning to my Brees overs. I'm leaning towards a Jets, I'll call it 20 to, I'll make my final 20-17 Jets. So we get 37 total points. And the Jets do cover and win despite being 2.5-point underdogs. I think that line probably ends up at 1.5 by kickoff is my guess. And I think will be similar with Miami next week where they'll probably be 2 or 3 point underdogs all week. And then by kickoff, it's a pick 'em or a 1-point game is how we see it breaking out. Your props, Brees, Mechie. Mason Taylor is still reliable. He does lead the Jets in receptions with 37 now. He's just averaging 8 yards a catch, which is kind of comically low, even for a tight end. So I do feel like he's almost always good for like 4 catches for 30 yards. So he's not a terrible guy to invest in either from a prop perspective. I think Isaiah Davis will also continue to be involved with at least a few carries, just for God's sakes, not on 3rd and 5. Don't give Tyrod the ability to check into that run on 3rd and 5. We're going to drive everybody here crazy. Also, shout out new studio picture. Sorry, Sauce. We had to move you down to the garage at this point. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'll be back on the feed with Connor tomorrow night, talking about a Jets win or a Jets loss and mediating everybody fighting the great tank wars of 2025. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.